All right, thanks for joining us here tonight on Arc Salt Lake. I'm Brian Schnee, Wednesday evening here on February 19th. Tonight we're taking a look at a VA employee here in Utah being terminated and its impact on not only that person, but also the process we took to try to get some answers for them. First, though, the Drug Enforcement Administration sharing their thoughts on the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua impacting Utahns. Now, earlier today, I spoke with the special agent in charge of the DEA's Rocky Mountain Field Division.
The DEA has been tasked by the new administration to work collaboratively with Department of Homeland Security and the other federal law enforcement agencies to really target the worst criminal aliens in our cities and our states. And that's what you're seeing here.
How successful has that operation been in Utah?
Listen, I think Sunday's success kind of speaks for itself. I mean, we took 13 people off the streets. 6 of those were arrested by DEA from ongoing active DEA investigations targeting drug traffickers. Of those total 13, ICRO took a number of those folks as well. Listen, 4 of those, I believe, were TDA gang members. So we're talking about serious criminals. I mean, if you're not familiar with TDA, they're a Venezuelan prison gang. They're involved in drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, prostitution, weapons trafficking, you name it, they're bad dudes.
TDA's involvement, I guess, in the drug trafficking world, what does that look like in terms of their involvement compared to other cartels that are very prominent here bringing drugs into the United States?
I would say from the drug trafficking angle, there's certainly sort of a mid-level player in that sphere. The Sinaloa and the Jalisco cartels are the ones that we're most concerned about because they're manufacturing the drugs in Mexico. They're responsible for getting them across our border, and they're distributing them in our cities. However, with this influx of Venezuelan migrants that we've seen all across the U.S. really, and especially in Utah and over here in Colorado, we've seen that they are also not only selling drugs, but they're also involved in extremely large quantities. The middle of last summer of 2024, we took 12 kilograms of fentanyl pills. That's roughly 120, 130,000 fentanyl pills off of a TDA gang member coming into Denver. So they're involved with some really large drug trafficking operations. However, those guys didn't make those fentanyl pills themselves. They obtained them from a Mexican cartel.
How much has TDA been on your radar over the recent years anyway? Because it seems like they kind of just swooped into Utah, and then there's been the noise about it, at least the publicity about it. But in terms of what you've been looking at, what does that look like for you guys?
I think it's relatively new for us, right? I mean, our focus has been firmly on the Jalisco and the Sinaloa cartels because that's what's killing Americans. Look, we had 100,000 people die last year from drug overdoses all across the United States. Utah is not immune to that in any way, shape, or form. We seized a record amount of fentanyl in Utah last year. So a gang like TDA now is coming into the forefront, mainly because they're so violent. You saw those videos from the apartments in Aurora, Colorado. Really violent guys carrying AK-47s and handguns. These are serious criminals. So while they're not as heavy duty as maybe Sinaloa or the CJ&G cartels, they're definitely somebody who we're paying attention to now. And we've, in the last year or so, I think, put a lot of extra focus on them.
The TDA instance here on Sunday, was that more from your office or was that more from ERO?
That was ICE. ICE was the one who found those 4 TDA guys. And so we were extremely happy to hear that they were able to pick them up.
What does Sunday's operation here in Utah show about, I guess, the ongoing effort between not just your office, but the other federal agencies involved in this overall bigger operation?
Listen, I think Sunday's efforts by DEA, Homeland Security, and the other agencies that were out there shows that we're going to be relentless in keeping our communities safe, right? These people are not people you want to be your neighbors. We're talking about serious drug traffickers, weapons traffickers, people who engage in prostitution, extortion. You don't want these folks living next door to you. So we're going to be relentless about finding them and getting them out of our community, however that looks, whether that's through a prosecution or through a deportation.
I'm assuming that message holds true for people here in Utah, given now what they're seeing about what happened on Sunday, right?
Yeah, and that message is for Utah. We're going to we'll keep doing what we've been doing, right? You've seen that we've been doing this all across the United States, and now we're starting to do it in Utah as well, and we're going to continue to do that because listen, some of these TDA folks from Denver we think have left because we put so much pressure on them, and now we're potentially seeing them go over to Salt Lake City. So we're monitoring that. We're looking for them, and we're not going to stop till we get them all.
Last thing about just the operation on Sunday, was this more drug focused? Was this more focused on other aspects of crime? Like how does, without getting into the weeds, right, of the nitty gritty of how this went down, but was this focused on narcotic trafficking specifically or controlled substances or other things?
I think it's a little bit of everything. So DEA was definitely looking for people who were involved in our drug trafficking cases. I mean, we were targeting people and locations that we have identified in active investigations where we were looking at Sinaloa and Jalisco connected or criminal organizations at those locations. That's where we arrested the 6 people that DEA arrested. The other ones, I would have a hard time telling you where, ICE or ERO got information about the targets that they were looking for, not necessarily drug related on those. I think the people in Utah need to know that DEA and our partners at Homeland Security and the other federal agencies, we have our foot firmly on the gas. We're going to be relentless in finding these criminal aliens who are committing crimes and selling drugs in our communities that are killing Americans. And we're not going to stop until we root this out.
How much more work do you have to do here in the Beehive State?
Oh, I think there's a lot more work. Listen, I mean, I think we have, when we've seized a record amount of fentanyl last year in Utah, we got a lot more work to do. Listen, there's not only is there an immense amount of fentanyl available in Utah, there's an abuse problem. And so it's going to take more than just enforcement. That's going to take a whole public safety message and people like you getting the word out that, these drugs are dangerous and the criminals who sell them are dangerous, and we're working on it.
So now let's take a look back at part of a conversation our Brian Malahy had with DPS Captain Tanner Jensen about Tren de Aragua's presence here in the state of Utah.
The organization nationally has certain trends and criminal behavior that we've seen nationally, and we've seen some of that here in Utah.
What kind of crimes?
Wide variety of crimes. Very similar to other organized crime, gang activity. Largely, we're looking at retail theft, burglary, drug distribution, sextortion, extortion, fraud, things of those nature.
And when you say retail crime, how does the enterprise work? What's the advantage to the gang of retail crime?
Yeah, we've seen it for several years. A lot of criminal organizations will look at large retailers and find ways to exploit their organizations by stealing as much product as they can right from their store and fleeing as quickly as possible.
And what do they do with it?
They'll redistribute it, sell it on the black market for a lower price, and then take those funds and use those to enhance their criminal organization.
Okay. In terms of burglaries, what kind of burglaries are we talking about?
We've seen here in Utah and nationally burglaries where it's a home invasion and they're going in and looking for firearms, valuable electronics, things of that nature.
So I listened to most of this interview today. It's pretty insightful if you're interested in learning more about this Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, and their involvement here in Utah. You can find it right now on our KUTV 2 News YouTube page. Coming up on Arc Salt Lake, a federal worker speaks exclusively to 2 News after being let go. What happened? Next. A federal worker here in Salt Lake City speaking out exclusively to 2 News after he was terminated in the latest round of federal workforce cuts. Brian Will spoke to that veteran today and has more on what makes this case unique.
As a disabled veteran who gets most of my medical care at the VA in Salt Lake City, I felt like I was giving back to this community.
Gregory House served 4 years in the United States Navy before returning home.
I moved to Utah to be closer to family. At that point, I went to the U, got my undergraduate in communications, and I knew at that point that the job I wanted was public affairs at the VA.
After earning his master's degree, House landed his dream job in public affairs at the VA in Salt Lake City in March 2024.
It's not particularly easy to get into a job like this, whether you're in government or in the private sector.
House earned numerous incentives, awards, and even got a top-rated performance review from his manager.
He rated me on outstanding on 5 out of 5.
Then, late Thursday night, news came out of Washington, D.C.
I had to find out I was fired from a press release.
He found this email Friday morning.
After skimming through the email and trying to see if it was a joke, trying to just absorb the information, I noticed a line in there that said, due to my performance, the agency has decided that my employment was no longer in the public interest.
What was that feeling when you got that email and found out you no longer had a job?
It was hard. I felt numb. I felt like I was in shock. I didn't know. It felt hard to believe at first. And as the last couple of days have gone by, it started to feel like a betrayal.
Well, he stayed on after he was fired to get his coworkers up to speed on what he was working on. Brian also spent the day reaching out to numerous offices and government officials regarding this case.
I had been sent an email from somebody in HR who I'd never met. This person might be local, they might be in DC, I couldn't tell you, that says I had been terminated.
I set out first to find out who sent the email. It came from Tracy Thruitt, the Veteran Affairs Chief Human Capital Officer in Washington, D.C., which is led by the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. I reached back out to her through the same email address. No phone numbers or emails are publicly available or listed on their website. I also made calls to the VA's office and reached out to the Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, this is Brian from KUTV.
Then I reached out to Governor Spencer Cox, Utah Senators Mike Lee and John Curtis, and our Utah congressional representatives. I asked them if they were aware of this situation and many like it happening across the state.
Hello, and thank you for calling VA Media Relations.
And how does this align with the government's commitment to supporting and honoring military veterans, particularly when it seems to undermine their career prospects after service?
Well, there was snow on one of the UDOT cameras way up north there in Box Elder County just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a batch heading towards Tremonton to the Logan area. That's kind of like the first little wave. But the main wave arrives tonight after midnight.
Okay.
And we've got a messy commute tomorrow morning. We've got winter weather advisories up for much of the Wasatch Front, including areas, of course, up into the mountains. So plan accordingly for your morning commute. If you could delay it, if you maybe stay home, if that's an option for you, that'll be smart to do so because we've got accumulating snow and really good chances here for the valley floors and maybe even some lingering problems as we get into tomorrow evening's commute. For right now, here up and down the Wasatch Front, we're down into the 30s and 40s, 43 degrees here in Salt Lake City. We're dry right now, and we're getting pretty chilly in Heber at 26, 29 in Park City. Freezing cold in Manti, 35 in Panguitch, but nowhere near as cold as what's going on for the majority of the country. Look at Texas there, 12 degrees in Austin, negative 12 in Fargo's a wind chill, negative 4 in Chicago, even pretty chilly up into the northeast in the Mid-Atlantic area. Mid-Atlantic still dealing with some snow there, where over a half a foot of snow could fall in the Virginia Beach area. That system sliding out towards the east. Meanwhile, we're watching our system already pushing into Nevada and southern Idaho, bringing them some heavy rain and some snow, and the beginning of the main storm already now into the northwestern part of the state. This is the line that'll be arriving at some point after 11 p.m. tonight. You'll see that first wave here bringing some light scattered snow, trying to inch its way closer towards the Brigham City and Logan area. As we get closer towards that 11 o'clock hour, that's when we'll start to see those showers moving into the Wasatch Front. It might start off as a little bit of rain, and then it'll quickly transition and change over to all snow. And then tomorrow morning, here we go, from Logan down to Ogden, Salt Lake City, Provo, Delta area. We'll see periods of heavy snow throughout the morning commute, lingering on even through lunchtime. We could still be seeing some snow here, and then gradually tapers off by tomorrow evening, and then that storm moves out towards the east. So how much snow do we pick up? Well, could see a couple inches of snow here up and down the Wasatch Front, generally about 1 to 4 inches, and then up into the mountains about 6 to 12 inches of snow along the Wasatch back, about 3 to 6 inches we're expecting, including southwestern Wyoming. Along the benches, again, could see close to a half a foot of snow, and in the central mountains about 2 to 6 inches. So lows overnight, we're diving down close to freezing, 24 for low in Park City. We'll see that snow arriving some point after midnight tonight. Highs tomorrow into the mid and upper 30s here, 36 in Heber. We'll see those lingering showers through the evening. St. George, though, how about this? 50s, eventually turning to the 60s, getting close to 70 degrees as we get into Sunday, and then very warm spring-like temperatures for early next week along the Wasatch Front. First alert weather day for tomorrow, drying out, warming things up as we get into the weekend. Look at that, close to 60 degrees, Brian, on Monday. Monday could be a golf day. Oh,
Sean, look what, so I just wanted to surprise you. I took the
go.
liberty during your forecast. I walked over there to the weather center. I'm not supposed to be there, okay? I'm not a meteorologist. I went over, I started looking around. I found one UDOT camera with snow on it right there, state line. I-15 up there in Box Elder County, and nice view actually, Sean.
Yeah, a little bit of snow, not expecting anything in accumulations from this batch, but again, after midnight, that's when I would really take it extra slow.
Aren't you glad you have me here?
Yeah, exactly.
7,
What else
you know,
did you
just,
click on back there?
Well, hey, we're not showing that. Coming up on ARC Salt Lake, Utah Olympians were honored at the state capitol today. What achievements they were honored for, coming up. Time has run out on a plan to keep you from changing your clocks twice a year. Seems like this bill always stalls or just doesn't go anywhere, by the way. Today, a legislative panel voted to table House Bill 120, which would keep Utah on Mountain Standard Time all year long.
Why can't we not have to do this back and forth each year? Right?
Every single year.
If the federal law changed to allow daylight saving time at all times of the year, then Utah would switch to that. Arizona and Hawaii are the only states with year-round standard time.
And listen, I don't envy our legislators. A lot of them have been very kind to me over the years, so keep up the good work there on the Hill, but maybe don't waste your time with this bill. Just saying, no one's going to move it. Anyway, Utah Olympians and Paralympians who took part in the Summer Games in Paris were honored at the state capitol today. Utah sent dozens of athletes to the Paris Games.
Yeah, today state leaders recognized them for their achievements. Both the Senate and House floors, the U.S. dominated the Paris Games with 126 medals in total. Utah athletes won 8 medals, including 3 silver and 5 bronze.
Salt Lake's Clark Planetarium has been named one of the best planetariums in the entire country. That is according to the readers of USA Today. The spot ranked 9th in the country.
For the planetarium's interactive exhibits, immersive dome theater experiences, and commitment to science education, the director of the planetarium says this achievement reflects the commitment to bringing cutting-edge science to Utah.
Shout out Chris Jones, former KUTV employee over there at the planetarium there. Probably very excited about this ranking. I still need to take my daughter there. She's 3. I don't know if she's ready for it.
We'll go together.
I would love to go. Trust me. I want to go check it out. Any last words about tomorrow's storm? Don't white knuckle it while you're on the roads, please.
It could be a little sneaky storm, maybe 3 to 5 inches up and down the Wasatch Front.
Could be the most I've shoveled all year.
That's right.
I will post pictures. Just tune into social and find out. See you tomorrow night, 7.